secret little alcove or passageway between what used to be JP Morgan over here to my right, and there's the Mellon Bank over there, BNY. The Mellon Bank was part of the Philadelphia Story with Tom Hanks. That was a movie about AIDS and defamation suits, and just and him being able to win a suit against his law firm, which tried to push him out once he showed symptoms and signs of having AIDS or HIV with lesions and stuff like that back in the 80s, 90s time period. So that's the Philadelphia Story. That's Comcast straight ahead. They've had different restaurants that are right in front behind these trees, like on the other side of those, but in front of Comcast. The most recent restaurant, like, you know, outdoor cafe style restaurant was called Click. Did they spell it in a French way? I think it had a French theme. I'm not sure, but did it, or I wanted it to? I wanted it to be like Click, like CLIQUE, but it might have just been Click, like CLICK. And the point was, you know, Comcast is, of course, is a cable provider. It's like the #1 cable provider here. And then other states and cities and towns throughout the nation also have Comcast. Not everyone. Gainesville had Cox Cable, Gainesville, Florida. So anyway, which means it could be heavily controlled, their content and programming. We won't get into, you know, how differently people receive news or information, especially, you know, if you have an iPhone versus a Android or what have you. But we'll get into that later, because my aunt wound up with like incredibly false weather, and like everything else was correct. It was Fahrenheit, it was the town, it was the time. I was like, where did she get this? It showed up like on the outside, just like you would get your daily weather report. So anyway, but Click just, you know, was the restaurant, like a remote control or whatever. That building there, that brownish one, 1717 Arch. It used to be one of the tallest buildings. It's still one of, but Comcast came in and outdid it, and then Comcast 2 might have even outdone that. But it used to house the Firefighters Climb, and I think it was like a fundraiser for leukemia. I don't know if they still do it there. The pandemic pushed them outside to a stadium, so they still held the fundraiser and the, you know, the excuse me, Hero Firefighters Climb, what have you. I don't know if they brought it back to this 1717 Arch. So anyway, the thing is, that building houses, you know, I guess a bunch of offices. It's interesting because it doesn't always look that crowded, even though it seems like it should be, you know what I mean? But one of the offices in there is Greenberg and Traurig. It's a law firm that handles all kinds of things, one of which includes bankruptcy for large corporations or conglomerates like UFIT Health and Fitness, which is where I taught yoga before the pandemic. When they closed their doors on St. Patrick's Day 2020, a Tuesday, March 17th, we would later get a letter, like many months later in November, December, saying that they had to file bankruptcy even though jobs were protected should you return when the pandemic was over. The offices handling it were Greenberg and Traurig, which I call Trauma Rig. Oh look, it's FedEx, a little tiny. And the specific offices were out of Delaware and Wilmington, Delaware, and Chicago, Illinois. We have an office here in Philadelphia, and it's housed here at 3 Logan Square or whatever. Greenberg and Traurig. Of course, there's the Greenberg trial, which encompasses, like, was it a murder or a suicide? It's hard to tell. There's lots of stab wounds, and one would assume a murder. But the last name is Greenberg, Ellen Greenberg. And was it a trauma rig? You know what I mean? There's Starbucks. You going straight or? So they had a distraction here. They had a guy bent over and also cars turning. And technically someone could get hit with cars turning down the street that I just crossed if a person were too preoccupied looking at someone bent over by the store. of Starbucks, and you know, all kinds of distractions, all kinds of things can happen, and some people hope for that. It's really like a game out here in the city. It might be in other places, they create accidents and stuff like that. So anyway, always be on watch if you can. Nobody's perfect. So, but anyway, Greenberg trial, I think it was reaching the Supreme Court this year. Like in July, there was an article about this. You know, I'm wondering if there's a parallel universe, because the fourth Monday and the fourth week of January 2011, I was made to believe I'd be murdered in my apartment. Meanwhile, somebody else was actually found dead in her apartment in Manayunk, and I was down here in the Graduate Hospital area of Philadelphia. So I kind of forgot. I probably read a news thing briefly, but I was so caught up in like an incredible, I am talking, it was whack. It was like someone's sick, sadistic science fiction film being played out. And if I even read the news article, that, you know, I wouldn't have remembered it because I was so caught up in someone's maelstrom of a control of a city and a human being, and I don't even know what to say how bad that was. So caution. So anyway, in fact, that week I brought my mom up. Her birthday was January 27th. She came up actually on a Friday, that last Friday of January. We had blizzards, we had snow. People were experiencing cabin fever that year. So sort of like the pandemic, but it was all during snow blizzards and just never-ending snowstorms that kept popping up. A couple of blizzards and a couple just heavy dumpers of snow. We were buried under like more than 30 feet. That's not an exaggeration. It was that bad that year. It's been a long time since we had snowfall like that, so oh, she knows. Right. So what if this company were here to help that school? Kind of. Okay. You never know. That's a special charter school, and it could be helpful. You never know. Everybody has a different journey, so I don't want to, you know, I don't know what makes some people go one way and some people the other, but whatever your school, if your school is actually attached to another building and you're at a charter school or private school, they just have their own people, but it's possible that a certain group, like say the Davis group, tries to help those kids in that charter school without interfering. Oh, there's a squirrel. Hey. I'm just saying, you never know. You never know. Because, you know, when do your kids get to have a chance? You know what I mean? So, and that is still considered a public school. It's just a charter. Go down Church Lane. Alright. We'll go this way.